So, for today's case, it's another weird one, like most disappearances are, but the case itself is not necessarily weird. Like, I think most people have an idea of what happened to him, but his behavior just confuses me a lot. So today's case is about the disappearance of Kyle Fleischmann. He was 24 years old when he went missing in 2007 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Kyle studied business administration at university, and he was described as a very loving, caring guy, really fun, just a guy that a lot of people liked hanging out with. And I'm gonna get back to that point later on. So right before his disappearance, his mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer, which, took a toll on the family. And in order to lift her spirits before her first surgery, Kyle decided to get tickets to a Dane Cook comedy show, and they would go together. So on the evening of November 8th, 2007, him, his sister, his best friend Daniel, and his mom all met up at Daniel's house, and they took a cab together to the comedy show. And after the show, he said to his mom, "Look, I want to stay out a bit more. I'm going to meet up with some friends at the Buckhead Saloon," which was a very popular bar, "and I just want to have a few drinks and have a fun night." So him and Daniel went to this bar, and around 1 a.m., Daniel went to pay his tab at the bar. It was a weekday. He didn't want to stay out way too late, so he decided to go home. And he saw Kyle talking to some girl. And so he went over to Kyle to ask whether he was going to go home with him, because Kyle's car was parked at Daniel's house, or whether he wanted to stay out and maybe go home with this girl. So Kyle said he was having fun, and he decided to stay. And Daniel didn't think anything of this because, Kyle had met up with a few people he knew. He seemed to be really interested in this girl, and he seemed like he was having a really good time. So Daniel went about his night. And from here on out, all the information becomes speculation and things that have kind of been pieced together. So, there was surveillance footage at the Buckhead Saloon that shows Kyle around 2:20 a.m. still talking to this girl and having what seems like a fight with 2 or 3 guys. Like he's seen having kind of like a heated discussion, and there were like words exchanged between them. And now I've seen conflicting reports about at 2:20 a.m. he was seen crossing the street with this girl, and then at 3:30 a.m. he was seen leaving the bar on his own, which makes no sense to me. How would you cross the street and then just magically appear back at the bar? So I think what I got overall from the story is that he was seen on surveillance footage talking to the girl at 2:20, and then at 2:30 a.m. he left the bar. Now he forgot his debit card and his jacket in the bar, and it was only 30 degrees outside, or -1 Celsius, which is extremely cold not to have your jacket. This makes people believe that he was really drunk. Daniel said that when he left the bar, Kyle didn't seem particularly drunk. He seemed like he was in a fun mood, but he didn't really seem drunk. Now, there was an hour and a half in between when Daniel left and when Kyle was seen leaving the bar, but you can get pretty drunk in an hour and a half. I just don't think you can get absolutely wasted. I mean, maybe you can. And then he's seen crossing the street and going into a pizza place literally across the street, like a 30-second walk. He's seen outside the pizza place. I don't think he's seen going in, but the staff definitely remembers seeing him and serving him. and this is the last place he was seen. Now, in the next hour, he made a bunch of phone calls. He called his dad's office 4 times, which is bizarre because it was the middle of the night. There wouldn't be anyone there to pick up the phone. So, probably, at least this is what most people think, and this is what I think is most plausible. He had his dad under the same contact with his office number, his home number, and his cell phone, and he probably just dialed the wrong number. But then he also called his sister, Daniel, and some of his roommates, and the calls all lasted between 4 and 10 seconds. He didn't leave any voicemail, and the calls were barely long enough to let it ring. Like, they wouldn't have been long enough to pick up the phone. And his dad thinks that he was probably looking for a ride, but he never let it ring long enough for anyone to pick up. So I just think that's really weird. So, the next morning, everyone noticed their missed calls, and they called him back, and it went straight to voicemail. And Daniel was the first to notice something was wrong because Kyle's car was still in his driveway. So he called his roommates, and they said he never came home. So he then called Kyle's parents and said, no one knows where Kyle is. He then immediately started up a missing persons Facebook page, which literally thousands of people joined on the first day. Hundreds of people joined in the search for him. And within 24 hours of a missing persons report being filed, the police started questioning cab drivers. They figured, it was late at night, it was cold, he might have been out looking for a cab. There's a good chance someone has seen him. And one cab driver came forward and said that he saw a guy matching Kyle's description walking in a very bad part of town, which immediately made the police think something horribly went wrong. He remembered him because he said he looked really out of place, and this kid wasn't wearing a jacket, which you would remember on a 30-degree night. So, they then started looking, tracing his cell phone calls and looking into his pings. And he pinged several times in that bad part of town, once about 5 minutes after the cab driver said he saw him. So they think it's a very credible witness. And then, the last time it pinged, so his pings were heading towards a park that had a really bad reputation for a lot of drug dealers, and that was known to be the stomping ground of a well-known gang. And his last ping was at 3:30, literally steps from the entrance to the park. So, they brought, this confused and upset a lot of people because they knew that Kyle knew better than to go to this part of town. He knew it was a dangerous area. He didn't know anyone there. He was pretty familiar with the city, so he would know that he was in the wrong place. And yet it seemed it was just under a 2-mile distance from the bar, which is about a 35 to 40-minute walk. It was 30 degrees outside. He didn't have a jacket. I don't care how drunk you are, you notice that at some point. B, to walk for that far in the wrong direction kind of tells me that he's doing it on purpose. And C, some people think he might have been grabbed, pulled into a car, and dropped there. But if he leaves the bar at 2:30, say that it takes him about 15 minutes to get a few slices of pizza. Apparently he ordered 2 slices and ate them there. That leaves about 45 minutes to get to the park, which is around the walk time. So I'm pretty convinced that he walked there himself. So they brought in 2 cadaver dogs, and they both, the one dog walked the exact way that the people assumed Kyle would have taken. Interestingly enough, the dog did a big loop around the pizza place, and the second dog did the same thing, which would indicate that Kyle walked around, perhaps to check if anyone was following him. And then both dogs couldn't search the park for a very long time with the dogs because of the gang activity and because it was such an unsafe area. So one of the dog's handlers spoke to a homeless man who lived near the park, and the homeless man stated that he knew Kyle was killed in the park but didn't know where the body was. So in the next couple of days, the two dogs led them from the park to a nearby construction site. One of the dog's handlers said that she immediately smelled death. Now, she doesn't know the difference between a dead animal and a dead body, but she said there was a definite smell of death, and that to this day she believes that Kyle's body was buried there at some point. It was a very open space at the time, and there was a lot of opportunity to bury a body there in one of the many plots of sand that were there. In total, there were 17 cadaver dogs brought in. All of them led to the park, and all of them led to the construction site, which indicates that he was definitely at the construction site at some point. And they searched the whole site, and they found nothing. So, in 2009, a federal judge ordered a search warrant for a different construction site, but he had the documents sealed, so it was never released what was found. A lot of people at the time thought that they sealed it because they had a good amount of proof and they were building a case against someone. But honestly, it's 9 years later now. I kind of think if they had a case, they would have presented it by now. But you can't just issue a search warrant without probable cause. Like, they had to be on to something, or they had to have some physical evidence, or maybe a witness statement that made them search this site. And that's really kind of everything there is in terms of what happened in this case. So I'll get on to a few theories, although they're not really so much theories. But his dad thinks that he was the victim of a random robbery. A lot of people think that if it was gang violence or drug dealers, that they wouldn't have gone through the trouble of hiding his body, that they would just have left it there, and people would know that he was the victim of a crime, but nobody really dared to prosecute the gang. I believe this to a certain extent. I think drug dealers would go through the trouble of meticulously hiding a body. I don't think they want to get caught for murder. But a lot of people believe that it was a robbery gone wrong and the people panicked and they hid his body. His dad also said later that he believes if this case ever gets solved, it'll be from a local tip and not a national tip. He believes that the local people know more than they're saying, and that the people who did this are still in town. So it seems that his family and friends all believe he's dead, but unfortunately he was never found. Now, it's still unclear to this day why he walked to that park, knowing full well that it was a very dangerous area. A lot of people think he was just too drunk to know what direction he was walking in, but I can't say that I've ever been drunk to that point. I don't really get drunk. My body has a really weird reaction to alcohol, so I never drink more than 2, sometimes 3 glasses, and 3 is like my absolute limit. So I can't speak to that. But I've had friends who have definitely been so drunk that we practically had to carry them out of the pub, and they still made it home fine. I also believe that if you're so drunk that you don't remember what direction you need to go in, that you're also so drunk that you can't stand on your feet anymore. I think if you're able enough to walk, you know where you're going. Also, he had pizza. Now, I'm not saying this because I think the pizza has absorbed some of the alcohol. I don't know if that's an urban myth or not. I don't know if it actually works that way. But what I mean by that is he was clearly cognitive enough to order a pizza and eat it, which means seems to me he wasn't that drunk. And then I also don't believe he was drunk enough to no longer know where he was walking to. I also read that Kyle only lived 3 miles from the bar. If he walked 2 miles to that park, why couldn't he just walk 3 miles home? Like, what the hell was he doing at that park? Some people think that he went to that pizza place just to grab a bite to eat, but he was intended on coming back to the bar because he left his debit card and jacket. Some people think he left it there on purpose with the intention of coming back. Or some people think that he remembered he left it there when he got to the pizza place and realized how cold it was, and that he was intended on going back to get it later, and that he either got derailed along the way and just got pulled in a different direction, or that the bar was maybe closed in the meantime and he couldn't get in to get it. But some people also said he might not have noticed that he didn't have a jacket, because when you come out of a hot bar, the cool air is very welcoming, and I totally agree with that. I overheat very quickly, so when I'm in a bar, I relish the cold air outside, but that lasts for about 5 minutes until I start freezing. So I'm sure that could have happened, but to walk for 35 or 40 minutes, he would have definitely noticed that he was really cold. What made him so focused on this walk that he didn't go back for the jacket? And if the bar was indeed closed, it still doesn't explain to me why he was walking in that area. Some people think he might have gone to the park to get drugs, but he didn't have a history of drugs. Some people think he went looking for that girl, but it came out later that the reason he probably had an argument is because the girl had a boyfriend. And that was established that she had a boyfriend, so I don't think he would have gone after her to look for her. Now, I said earlier that I'd come back to the people saying he was a really nice guy. About a year ago, people started replying to a subreddit about this that said they used to go to school with him and that he was not a nice guy when he was drunk, that he had quite a mouth on him when he was drunk, and that they wouldn't be surprised if his mouth got him into trouble. So I wonder whether he went to that park, started mouthing off to some drug dealers or some gang members, and he got himself killed. It could be that he got robbed. Like, I have no doubt that he fell victim to a crime that night and that he's dead. I do genuinely believe that. But I cannot get past the confusion of why in the hell he went to that park. He knew that city. He knew he was not in the right part of town. Why did he do it? And it was, from what I understand, that was the north part of the city and he lived in the south. So it wasn't like he was taking a shortcut or a long way around to get home. He was heading in the completely opposite direction. So I don't know. I find this a very strange case because he was a happy guy. He wasn't depressed, at least not according to everyone. He had no reason to be there. I don't know why he went there. And it's now 11 years later and his body hasn't been found. And there's no large bodies of water nearby, so it's not like they could have disposed of him there. The construction sites have been checked. They didn't find him there.